Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about the overall discipline and penalty issues for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the past couple of weeks, and if this is going to be something that is going to continue moving forward. There's this really lovely mini thread that Greg Auman had posted on Twitter, Greg Auman of Fox Sports, and I wanted to kind of go over it today. Right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 11 penalties last night for 74 yards. It's the most flags they've had since 2019. I believe that was against the... Who was that against? The Raiders, I think? Yeah, I believe it was against the Raiders. 4 false starts for the second straight game. Luke Gedeke had 3 last night, according to Greg Auman, after totaling 3 in the first 6 games. Kind of an interesting thing here for me is Luke Gedeke's got 4 so far. So I don't know if Greg's talking about the entire offensive line having 3 false starts, or if he's talking about Luke Gedeke specifically. According to Pro Football Reference, and it is up to date, 7 games started for Luke Gedeke. He's had 4 false start penalties accepted, so I don't necessarily know where that information is coming from, but Luke Gedeke had 3 last night after totaling 3 in the first 6 games. Okay, Tampa Bay is now tied for 4th in penalties per game. They ranked 13th last year. But the more meaningful stat is probably penalty yards, and they're the 19th highest there, which points to a lot of 5-yard pre-snap issues. Just looking at the offensive line here, okay, Luke Gedeke's got 4 false starts, Tristan Wirfs has 3, that's 7, Matt Filer's got 2, that's 9. You go all the way down here, and Cody Mock thankfully doesn't have any, Robert Hainsey doesn't have any, and Nick Leverett doesn't have any either. Aaron Stinney isn't even on the list, so he only filled in yesterday for Matt Filer. So at 9, I believe, according to Pro Football Reference, 9 false starts here. So are these 5-yard pre-snap issues? 9 obviously coming from the offensive linemen, at least accepted, which I think false starts are pretty much always accepted. Delay of game might be a thing once or twice. That's something. Offsides may be something as well. That's something. Interesting thing to note there. Now, Greg Auman says offensive line has been the main offender the last 2 weeks. And then he starts a different sentence here. As a team, Bucs now have 14 holding penalties and 13 false starts. We talked about how 9 of those are from the offensive line here, right? Which is to say, so this is a different statement here. Offensive line has been the main offender the last 2 weeks, but to say as a team, this is not just the offensive line here. As a team, Bucs now have 14 holding penalties and 13 false starts. Okay, so 9 are from the offensive line, at least according to our research here on Pro Football Reference, the numbers we just ran here, which means 4 are coming from other people. That could be 1, we know 1's from Trey Palmer. 3 more might be coming from maybe like Cade Otton or some other people along the offense. Cade Otton, Trey Palmer. I know Cade Otton's had at least 1, I think. Maybe Rashad White. I think there was 1 on everybody but the center at one point. So, 9 from individual offensive linemen, 4 from the rest of the team. Okay? 14 holding penalties. Now, again, at least according to the research we're doing here, 3 are from Cody Mock. That's a big deal, right? Cody Mock's got 3. Luke Gedeke's got 1. So now we're at 4 from individual offensive linemen. Robert Hainsey's got 1. We're at 5 now. 0 from Tristan Wirfs. 0 from Matt Filer. 0 from Nick Leverett. So 9 holding penalties from everybody else that isn't an individual offensive lineman. It is something to note there. Right, because you got 1 from Hainsey, you got 1 from Luke Gedeke, and 3 from Cody Mock. So 5 holding penalties on individual offensive linemen. That means that there are 9 holding penalties that are on people who aren't offensive linemen. What could that mean? That could mean on running plays, maybe Cade Otton's getting a hold, Ko Keefe, a wide receiver, some different variation of that. So it's important to note there that and this goes deeper than the offensive line, right? But it seems like, at least, again, according to the quick research we just did, you guys just saw the numbers on Pro Football Reference, 14 holding penalties, 9 of which are not on the offensive line. That's on other people. 13 false starts, 9 of which are on the offensive line, 4 of which are on other players. They had 5 false starts in the first 5 games, now 8 in the last 2. Now, when Greg Auman says they, I don't know if that's referring to the offensive line or to the team as a whole. I assume offensive line, maybe, but apparently 8 false starts in the last 2. Again, I don't know. You guys saw the numbers that we just ran in the research that we did for Pro Football Reference. Don't know if Pro Football Reference is wrong. I don't know. But as a whole, it's not a massive issue. This is where I disagree. And Greg explains that opponents have given them 17 first downs on penalties, 4 more last night. And they've only given up 9. Okay? So the Buccaneers have gotten 17 first downs based off of penalties. They've only given up 9. Okay? Their net penalty yards for 2023 is minus 25. Less than 4 yards a game compared to opponents. Basically 1 small flag per game. Okay. So the Bucs are net basically giving a 4-yard flag to opponents per game. To me, I disagree where Greg Auman says this isn't a massive issue. It's not a massive issue. And while you can say, hey, the Bucs have gotten 17 first downs and they've only given up 9. They'd be doing a lot better if they didn't give up 9 first downs, right? And in the grand scheme of things, look, penalties are going to happen for sure. I completely understand that. But what's a bigger issue for me is whenever you look at, and not even necessarily giving opponents first downs based on penalties, take that, kind of remove that from what we're talking about right now, right? Yes, that's a good thing for the Bucs, right? We just talked about how they're tied for 4th in penalties per game. That's an issue. That's a big issue. But what's a bigger issue for me is right here. 14 holding penalties, 13 false starts, okay? We just ran the numbers. 5 are from the offensive line, at least in holding penalties. 13 of these false starts, 9 are from the offensive line. And if you even go into penalties accepted, okay, from the offensive line specifically, we're just looking at offensive line in this example. 5 penalties accepted from Luke Gedeke, 3 from Cody Mock, we're at 8, 11 with 3 from Tristan Wirfs, 14 with Matt Filer, 2 from Robert Hainsey, and 1 from Nick Leverett. So I believe that's 17 in 7 games. So, you're essentially averaging, a little over 2 yards per game from just your offensive line. Penalties accepted from just your offensive line, right? Is that terrible? No, but that's just the offensive line. 14 holding penalties, 13 false starts. What matters for me regarding this is the idea of killing drives, right? A holding penalty and a false start can kill a game, right? And right now you're averaging 2 per game, 2 holdings and 2 false starts for the team as a whole. That can kill a lot of offensive drives, man. It really can. So that's a big issue there for the offense specifically, is you have to have better discipline. Not just for the offensive line, but as a team as a whole. Again, you're 4th in penalties per game. That's got to improve because you're really, really, really hampering your offense. Both passing and rushing attacks. Anytime the Buccaneers get a big run, holding penalty. Anytime the Buccaneers maybe try to get something going, they get around midfield, a false start. That's where you're running into big issues here. So yeah, I mean, I think it is a big issue in terms of discipline and in terms of penalties. Is the defense not giving up first downs through penalties? No, not as much, right? It's almost double, in the reverse, which is a positive thing. But offensive penalties have got to improve. You can't have averaging 2 holdings and 2 false starts a game and expect to have sustainable drives. Again, I know penalties are a big part of this game, and I know it happens, but 4 penalties per game is not sustainable football, and it needs to be improved. Point blank simple as that. Needs to be improved here. And it is a glaring issue the past couple of games. Again, take a look at false starts. Luke Gedeke's 2nd right now. Tristan Wirfs is, Luke Gedeke's tied for 2nd. This is just offensive line. We've seen holdings from Trey Palmer. We've seen stuff from Cade Otton. even on defense. Defense hasn't been as bad, just a couple of penalties here and there, but offensively, penalties have got to be better. And if the team's disciplined, I feel like you're doing your team a so much better service in terms of offensive efficiency and just not creating big issues for yourself. So it's an interesting thread here from Greg Auman, and I think it does shed a little bit of light on the disciplinary and the offensive issues in terms of overall efficiency that this team has been having with penalties and overall discipline as well. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions about this mini thread that you've seen from Greg Auman, about the penalties that we went over, at least the offensive line here. Would love to get your guys' thoughts and opinions. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. As always, folks, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.